Good morning. Welcome to the Cookie Chat.
I'm Melissa.
And I am Chelsea. And we are just basic bakers letting loose and keeping it real. How are you this morning?
Right. I'm good, just chilling with Miss Vivian. He'll probably come in here and there. And no, I did not mess up twice on her school schedule. It is the same day we are recording, and we just changed outfits to keep it, interesting for you guys. You want to say hi?
Hello, darling.
Okay, we hadn't gotten to the brushing her hair part of the day yet when I found out that she didn't have school today. So, okay. Go eat that somewhere else.
All right.
Play with your iPad. Okay. How are you? Your children are at school? How great for you?
Yeah. I don't know what that's like. All right. So this week's episode, we are going to dive deep into it because we have so much to talk about. This is our 2022 budget episode.
Always a big topic.
It is. I feel like this is a question that we get asked a lot on our personal pages and our Cookie Chat page is just kind of where to go with this. Mm-hmm. If you don't or you haven't already watched it, over on Instagram at the Cookie Chat, we have a whole episode about pricing. And
one of our most popular episodes.
Yes. So we highly recommend visiting the pricing episode so that you can kind of use this in correlation with that. Yeah. So also, we did ask you guys questions on what you wanted to know about budgeting and taxes and all of that fun stuff. We want to preface this episode by saying we saw your guys' questions. We will be getting to as many as we can this week in our stories. But a lot of those are very case specific to your state, to your business model, just kind of all of that good stuff. So it was really hard to answer 90% of those questions.
Well, and some of it too, you know how you can watch as many cookie decorating or cake decorating videos as you can handle, but you're never truly going to know how it works until you just do it.
Yes. Yes.
Some of these things are you're just going to have to test your market. And so again, we'll get to some of those on our social media, but we do see all of it. It's not invalid questions. They're just ones that are going to take some more detail specific to you. And we may or may not have something later this year that could just appeal to that, but that's for later.
I feel like we're that. If you've ever watched any like legal commentary or ever talked to a lawyer and they're always like, it depends. It depends.
Oh yeah.
It's such like a legal answer.
Seriously.
So yeah.
Case specific.
Yes. That's what I feel like with some of these questions, but we're going to dive into it. So first topic that we are going to hit you guys is time equals money.
So true.
What do we mean by this? So when we are talking budgeting this episode, we're not even just going to talk it. Wow. We're not even
it's 2022.
My mantra.
What was your mantra? We'll see.
We'll see what happens. This is exactly the perfect reason why. So when we talk about it, we're not even just talking about money, pricing, all of that type of stuff. We are also talking time. So the whole salad comes together with your time. Okay? This is our lettuce. This is our foundation.
Oh, man. You really thought about this.
I did. What do we mean by this? All right. The first thing we recommend for anybody, regardless how long you've been doing cookies, is time yourself. Know how long each process and step takes, from making your dough to designing a set to detailing a set, all of that good stuff. Do you do this? Have you ever timed yourself on it?
Yeah.
Not even just like stopwatch, just you generally know how long.
No, I generally know. Well, and what's funny is like, I feel like the reason I know how long dough really takes to make is because Mike was like, remember when you said it'd be just 5 minutes before we could do blah, blah, blah? He's like, it's been longer.
Mike's coming in handy.
He's like, can we watch Yellowstone yet?
Oh my gosh, I'm in his Yellowstone. Look at me.
Look at you with your flannel too.
Oh no.
I know. Yeah. No, I definitely have. And I feel like it's something that I should revisit again. Well, my business model is changing, but like, I feel like you have to kind of like revisit it as your skill level grows too, you know?
Yes.
But yeah, it's definitely something you should do. And like, I guess I would say at the very least, I know, given what my time available is, how much I can handle as far as how many dozen or sets and designs and things. I think that's purely the basis of, you need to know how much you can handle. And then you also need to use it for your pricing.
So, correct. So that is exactly why we started with budgeting your time. Is I know as a full-time baker, people are always interested on like, how many dozen do you take on a week? Or if I post, they're like, how do you take on that many dozen? It's because I know how long each set takes, or each design is going to take. So then I can work backwards and be like, all right, well, if I have X amount of hours available, this is how many dozen I can fit in that time slot.
It's fantastic to do, especially for your pre-sales. Or your holiday sales.
Yes.
That'll really help you know, like, well, what quantity can I do? Time yourself.
Certainly. Yeah. No, it's always going to start there. So with that, Melissa led into perfectly on how that kind of, look at that.
That's like I planned it.
Yes, with your income. So this is going to be really specific to each person depending on their business model. You guys, again, just go with it.
Y'all, this is real life.
So it's going to be depending upon your business model, and income is different for everybody. What you need versus what you want, what you deem successful, what you deem as the goal is going to be so different for each person.
And changing.
So, yeah, it's always changing depending on what stage of life you're in, what business model you're in. Totally. So we kind of talked about this on how we view that full-time, part-time income. Melissa, do you want to elaborate on like your 50-50 kind of mindset?
Yeah. So from the get-go, I've always been a part-time baker. I dabbled with the idea of eventually going full-time. So I'm a part-time baker. From the get-go, we put in like a small, so I opened a checking account, and from the get-go, it's been 50% of whatever I made was going to go to the household, and 50% was going to go back into the business. We did do, like, there were some gifts along the way when I first started. For instance, like my baking rack, that was a birthday gift. Yeah, I know, you guys, hint, hint. I made an Amazon like wish list when I first started, and it's under a joint account. And Mike was like, he would just like pick stuff from it as like gifts. So I'm like, this is great.
Yes.
So hint. But yeah, and we did like a small, like starting in my, I think it was like a couple $100 just to kind of like get me going. But from that time, 50-50 for me has always been plenty to keep my business going. Now, it means I've had to be smart about when I buy things, and we're going to go into that. But I've had to be smart about my pricing and about, limiting sometimes on purchases and things like that, but it's been great. And you know, like, it's fun to have like, extra date night money and stuff like that. So that's been, for me, it's much more free flowing. I could get super nitty gritty with it if I needed to, and I'm sure I will in the coming year. But Chelsea, it's much more involved, as it should be, because she's a full-time baker. So explain to us a little bit about kind of how you handle that.
Yes. Okay, you guys. So a little bit different. And this is not to neglect at all by saying part-time hobby bakers on a business versus a full-time. Success can be found in all areas of this field. Just part of it is a lot of people come to me saying they want to know how to go full-time. And this is a great starting point. 1, track your sales as far as what are you bringing in and what are you turning away. Melissa and I both are on the same page. We never encourage somebody just to all of a sudden be like, hey, Christmas time was so fun, I'm going to jump into this full time. We never recommend just like starting on a whim. We're going to go full time, and we're going to see where this the wind takes us. If that's you, more props to you, because you're amazing. We just
not if you're trying to support your household.
Correct. And that is where there's a difference between a full-time, part-time. 90% of the time. Yes. 90% of the time, part-time is going to be something where it's like, this is an extra income money to pay things off.
Creative outlet.
Yeah. Mine it is a supplemental income from going into corporate America. So I have to make sure that I am hitting these numbers. With that being said, track what you're turning away, track what you're taking in. That is where I was able to turn around and say, hey, what I'm turning away, if I were to take those and I was able to do these sets, realistically, this is the number I would be doing. Once I knew that, I did the 2-time hustle. I did a full-time job and then cookies on the side where my cookie money could go just straight back into the business. So I was able to start my cookie cutter collection. I was able to buy the things like a projector or an airbrush machine, things that I was going to need to set myself up for success without trying to pull from my full-time job.
Yeah.
So I was able to do that for a year before I made the transition over. I was also able to build up a clientele. Working backwards is kind of the step method I took. So Melissa does the 50-50 or did the 50-50 when she first started. I did the backtrack method. So I knew I needed to bring in X amount of dollars because this is what my paychecks were take home, or obviously you need to add in taxes. So if you want to get real, you can look at that number prior to taxes and say, this is a number I need to bring home in order to leave full time. And it consistently needs to be coming in. So I was like, okay, this is the number I need to hit. How many dozen at the current dollar amount? And again, if you have a spread, take the average amount. So if, let's say average people are, you're $45 a dozen is your average. Use that average. Don't be like, oh, if everybody buys high end, use low or use average. And say at this average price, this is how many dozen I'm going to need to do a week in order to bring in that income. Then add on 10 to 15% more, because then you need to account for going back into your business. You need to account for things if you didn't factor into already having pulled taxes, all of that good stuff. So always allow for a little bit more. So say it was 18 dozen a week you needed to have, then say, okay, I'm going to give myself 22 dozen in order to meet that number.
An important thing too is to also, if you're pulling out, think about things like healthcare. Where is that coming from? If you are like doing 401k or anything like that, some of those added things that maybe like a corporate or full-time gig has. So sometimes there's a partner there that can pick up that healthcare piece or things like that. And Chelsea goes really a lot in depth on her specific episode. If it's not up here on YouTube, it will be. If it's not here, it's on our IGTV. But those I think are important things that sometimes people like forget to think.
Oh my gosh, yes. About. You're like, wait, who's fulfilling my 401k? Where's my investments coming from now? Me. All right. So that was my kind of method on it. Is there anything I missed on that?
I don't think so.
Okay. So we're
Sorry, I'm turning mute on and off because I have a kid playing dolls over here. I don't know if you guys can hear it.
No worries. All right. So to continue on with this, once you figure out your method and how much.
Real quick, sorry. I would say too, Chelsea's method of this, or our recommendation of not just all of a sudden quitting a job and going into it without having like some clientele and some thought process in it, is not just based off of Chelsea's experience. Chelsea's been in the industry for 5 years. I've been in it for a little over 3, and we know a lot of people in the community, and we have seen the journeys of so many full-time bakers and are friends with so many of the full-time bakers. Literally, every one of them has had a similar journey of like consciously like thinking about this and working towards it. So it's not just like on a whim we're saying it, and we're not saying that it absolutely can't work. It's just not the advice we personally would give.
Exactly. Again, if you find a way to make it work and it works, let us know. We'd love to interview you.
That would be amazing. I would love to hear that journey.
Exactly. Love that journey for you.
Yeah.
But
okay, so
yes,
I feel like this is one that we get asked a lot, and I know you specifically get asked this a lot. So if I am putting money back into my business, or if I then get paid, and I know I'm pricing myself right because I've watched your pricing episode and I know how to do that. How can I for 2022 budget accordingly? Like what should I be looking at placing this money towards for success? You have specific buckets. Explain those to us.
All right. When tracking things in the most simplistic form, I was able to break it down was your ingredients. So your butter, flour, sugar, vanilla, cinnamon, whatever you're using.
Which is a lot.
Dude,
Like,
those things went up.
That vanilla is no joke, man. Do you do the vanilla bean? I do the vanilla bean. That stuff is no joke.
No, I wanted to try vanilla bean because it's always sold out over here.
Yeah. You need to do that. Walmart is the Nielsen brand.
Oh. Gotta look at that. Our Costco's been out of flour and sugar since like before Christmas.
Yeah.
So it's always in those range. Yeah. So kind of know how much your ingredients are costing each month by tracking it. You do not have to have a fancy system to track this. It could be pen to paper. It can be Word document, Excel, whatever's working for you. Just make sure each time you make a purchase, you put it in that column. And I recommend, so you're real, because this is where it hurts. These are these like conversations you have when you look at your bank account or your credit card and you're like, I want to pretend I didn't spend that much. No, we're having the real conversation with you guys. Is spend how you normally would spend. Don't be like, oh, this number is going to look really high. If you are going to buy it, buy it. Set a limit of like 1 month, I'm just going to shop how I normally shop, or 3 months, whatever it's going to be for you. Put that in that category. Cutters or stencils and little things in that realm, put in a category. Last, packaging. So your boxes, your shred, your bows, your stickers, whatever you use that is going to bring the whole set together, put in a category. And again, shop how you would shop. If you saw a cutter sale and you're like, oh, I really just want that one single cutter, put it down. Do it as normal. Once you're done with that, you're going to review those numbers after that allotted time has ran out. And that is where you're going to see what you truly are spending and what can be cut back. From there, do you want to take it? Do you want to hop in, or you want me to? I know you're muted.
I know. Keep going. I'll add commentary where I can.
Okay, perfect. I didn't want to just take over your episode. All right, so we're going to set the budget amounts for each category and check back with that following at the end of each month. Meaning, if I said for Q1, so your first 4 months of the year, or 3 months, however your quarters are broken up into. I know. I had this conversation with somebody and they were like, it's this many months. I'm like, okay, we'll go with that.
Yeah. Well, in certain industries, like start at different times too. Yeah.
Yeah. Like end of the year, sometimes for people is like August.
Yeah.
So yeah. However you do your months. Let's say 3 months we set it for. So we set it for 3 months that we're just going to spend however we're going to spend. After those 3 months, every month following, we're going to revisit this budget so that we know. So you're going to look, set the budget amount for each category and check back. This is done in corporate all the time. If you have come from a corporate job where you have had to set a year-end budget or kind of plan, Melissa and I both came from marketing. I know I used to have to do them for events. So I would have to project in December. You'd always hear people in corporate being like, we're wrapping up for year end. Is I would have to project and say, hey, based off of the past years, I need X amount in my venue. I need this much for food. I need this much for extras. I would present it and get it approved. And they would say, sure, you have, easy math, let's say $100,000 for the year to spend on that. As the year was going, and I maybe tapped out in my events budget, like the actual venue budget, I was out of by August. I'm like, dang it, but I still have 2 more events. But something happened where I wasn't using any of the other categories. I'm like, oh, I still have like 10,000 in this one. You can reallocate those funds. So at the end of the year, I was still only spending that $100,000. It's just, where did the money need to come from? So then that way, year after year, you can look back and be like, I am spending excessive amount in ingredients. Is there a way maybe I can research that? Or is there a way that I can stop spending on cutters?
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
Yes.
So did you have to do that though with your corporate?
Yeah. So I was in advertising. And so it was more so like, here's your budget.
Just spend it. And
then we just, make it work where we can. But no, we are a household that budgets. I know some households don't budget, but we do. And like, that's what we say all the time. We're like, it is the bucket. Like the bucket doesn't change. This is what it is. So it just depends on like what's happening where of like how it goes. So, and I mean, we forecast. So like if there's a month we know like a vacation coming up, then, like we do all that. We're two very type A people. And so like that helps us stay calm. So it's kind of in the same for me in business. And so for me, and the way that I always evaluated it was my first and foremost was always ingredients. That's what I have to make the product that I need. Mm-hmm. It's that. And then a lot of times it would be stickers and like the basics of packaging. So not necessarily all the little pre-sale boxes, but I knew like to be compliant with my laws, it was that. It's also, I know that I have food insurance. And I have my website, which I pay like a certain amount to have the premium business site. So those are two things. And then any LLC, like re-upping, like those three things never change for me. And then my ingredients never change. So for me, whenever I'm budgeting, I'm like, okay, these are the numbers that I have to hit. And that I have to keep to. And then on top of that, and because I'm a part-time baker, I think if I were a full-time baker, I would probably be buying more cutters, especially come holiday time. Mm-hmm. But for me, I think one of my biggest investments was rather than buying a lot of cutters, which I did at the beginning, and you need to. But I finally like kind of made the investment into a projector early on because I was like, okay, if I'm not going to spend and I'm not going to buy the 3D printer, I don't have time to like be learning all of that and doing all of that. At least I have a projector and then I can make like this theme work without having to buy all these cutters. Yes. And especially too, if you're like just starting out and have last minute orders, a lot of times I used to stress so much and I would like pay for expedited shipping on getting these cutters in time for an order and you can hand cut too. If you don't know about hand cutting, research hand cutting. That's also a way. But for me, it was always like the pure business expenses, the back end expenses that I had to hit. And then if I had like surplus stuff, I would stock up on my ingredients and make sure that those were well stocked before I would then like spend money on the cutters or like additional stuff like that.
The extras.
The extras. Stuff. And I know Chelsea handles it differently, but for me, I always require, and I still do when I do take customs, is 50% up front. And for me, and just in communicating that with customers, it was always, this covers, one, that I know for sure I'm not going to be out of money if I buy cutters or a cake, drum or anything like that. But it just helped me from a financial workflow. And I think too, like with part-time, I think with full-time, you're looking at more of like a yearly set of numbers, and planning with that. And I think with part-time, because like you may take like a certain holiday off and like, it's a little bit more, that for me always kept it very like, okay, I know I'm making money on that set. I know I'm making money on this. Like I'm not losing money anywhere along the way. So that's how I did it. And like why I did it that way.
Yeah, no, that's really good. I, in the very beginning, didn't do like I did cash or I did things like that. And then
you just can't track it as much.
Yeah. A few months into it, I was like, I need a processor and just went that route. So I knew, I do not, like Melissa said, I don't require a deposit, but I do require payment in full 2 weeks prior to your set. Because at that point, if you cancel, I already have my cancellation policy. So that's how I kind of handle those. But I do require 2 weeks. I can't order a cutter. So I am already going to know, which we'll just go ahead and add in right here because that was a big question, is who gets to absorb the cutter costs on like a custom. That's up to you. If it's a cutter, let's say you're constantly doing mermaid and you're going to use it so many times, I mean, that's a personal choice on who's going to absorb that. If it's a one-time cutter, like a logo that somebody wants their shape, that can be up to you to say, hey, I don't have this. This is what I can offer you. If not, I'm going to need to order a custom cutter, and this is the price added in.
I've heard that with stencils too. And I've heard that people will pass the price on to the customer and be upfront with it. And they can say, you may take it with you. Like you're purchasing it, it can be yours. Or if you know that you're going to want to order more from me, then that way I already have it on hand and we don't have to like pay for it again.
Yeah, I've had people do that. Customers do that for custom cookies. And I'm like, I'll be upfront. I'm like, I don't have that cutter. I can do the X, Y, and Z. And they're like, oh, I'll order the cutter. I'm like, fine, I'll just put it back in your box.
Yeah.
So I've done both ways.
Can you say thanks for coming to the cookie chat? No.
Can you say may your cakes never be dry?
What's my name? What's mommy's name?
Missy Peas.
Missy Peas. That's my business. It is. All right. Well, thanks guys for joining us today.
Thank you. I am Chelsea with Rolling in the Dough AZ.
I'm Melissa with Missy P Sweets. May your cakes never be dry.
And your cookies be shiny and crater free. Thanks, Vivian, for joining us.
Bye. Say bye.